All right, shifting our focus now, a major shift may be unfolding in the Iran-US war, and it might just force American President Donald Trump to recalibrate his stance on Tehran's nuclear stockpile. Leaked details accessed by Saudi Arabian news channel Al Arabiya claims that Iran has agreed to a long-term freeze on parts of its nuclear program. Instead of a complete dismantling of its capabilities, the reported proposal also suggests that Tehran is willing to transfer enriched uranium to Russia, not to the United States, under specific conditions. Now, this raises a critical question. Will Donald Trump soften his position on Iran's nuclear stockpile if Tehran accepts restrictions without surrendering its entire program? Russia has remained a key figure in the negotiations, especially on the nuclear issue. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Moscow welcomes any voluntary Iranian concessions aimed at reducing global tensions.
Our position here is very simple. The basic principle is that Iran, like any other state party to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, has every right to enrich uranium for peaceful and energy purposes.
Now, Lavrov's remarks come weeks after Moscow reportedly offered to take custody of Iran's enriched uranium reserves as part of a broader diplomatic arrangement. Reports from Iran also claim that Washington has eased its tone during the ongoing negotiations. Iranian media outlet Tasnim claims that the United States has agreed to suspend sanctions on Iranian oil exports while talks continue. Citing those linked to the Iranian negotiating team, this is what the report claims, that Tehran continues to demand the complete removal of sanctions, while Washington is reportedly willing to temporarily lift only selected U.S. Treasury restrictions until a final agreement is reached. Iran earlier also said that its indirect talks with the United States are continuing through Pakistani mediation. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai said that Tehran has firmly defended its demands in every round of negotiations and has conveyed its concerns directly to the American side through mediators. On Sunday last, Iran's Fars news agency said that Washington had presented a 5-point list, which included a demand for Iran to keep only one nuclear site in operation and transfer its stockpile of highly enriched uranium to the U.S. According to the report, America had refused to release even 25% of Iran's frozen assets or pay any reparations for the war damage. In an earlier proposal, remember, which was sent last week, Iran had called for an end to the war on all fronts, including Israel's campaign in Lebanon, as well as a halt to a U.S. naval blockade on Iranian ports in place since the 13th of April. It also called for the lifting of all American sanctions on Iran and the release of its assets frozen abroad. Fars, remember, which is a semi-Iranian state media, said that the Iranian proposal had emphasized that Tehran would continue to manage the strategic Strait of Hormuz, which is, as we all know, a vital energy conduit that Iran has largely kept closed since the start of the war. On Monday, Iran's Supreme National Security Council announced the formation of a new body to manage the strait. And now, it would be interesting to say and see what U.S. President decides as his next course of action on Iran. With at least 246 suspected cases and 80 suspected deaths, a deadly Ebola outbreak has gripped Democratic Republic of Congo for the 17th time now. Neighboring Uganda has been impacted as well. The World Health Organization has now stepped in and declared this a public health emergency of international concern. In a country gripped by conflict, the local authorities have been scrambling to contain the latest outbreak involving the Bundibugyo strain of Ebola that dates back to April. As per reports, the earliest known victim developed symptoms on the 24th of April and died 3 days later. While a majority of the cases in the Democratic Republic of Congo are concentrated in areas of the Ituri province, such as Bunia, cases have been confirmed in the capital Kinshasa as well as the Goma city, which is controlled by the M23 rebel group. The virus has spread into Uganda as well, which has reported 2 confirmed cases, including 1 death so far. And amid this, experts have criticized the delay in detection of this outbreak.
The risk is very high that the next pandemic will start from the DRC. There is a strong chance this will happen because our ecosystem is favorable to the development of various pathogens. But the problem, as I told you, is the weakness of surveillance. Our system is very weak at detecting an outbreak.
A highly contagious and fatal disease, Ebola, was first detected in the Democratic Republic of Congo way back in 1976. 6 strains, including Sudan and Ebola Zaire, have been identified. Over 15,000 deaths have been attributed to this very disease so far. Now, why is this disease so dangerous? It has an average case fatality rate of around 50%. Associated with fruit bats, it spreads via animal to human transmission. Infected humans then pass on the disease to others through fluids such as vomit, blood, and semen. And this is not all. Direct contact with the last remains of the deceased Ebola patients has been a major transmitter of the virus as well. On an average, people begin showing Ebola symptoms 8 to 10 days after exposure. Initially, the symptoms are generic, such as fever, weakness, muscle pain, headaches, and sore throat. This is followed by loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea in severe cases. Internal and external bleeding has also been seen. Now, as authorities and aid agencies have intensified efforts to contain the outbreak, Democratic Republic of Congo has established new treatment centers where patients are being treated free of cost. The last Ebola disease outbreak in DRC lasted from 4th of September till the 1st of December last year, with a total of 64 cases, including 45 deaths.
The sooner we take the patient in for care, the sooner we treat them, the sooner we will stop the movement, what we call the spread of the virus. So this is not a mystical disease. Make yourself known so that you can be taken care of and so that we can prevent the disease from spreading. That is really the message. Treatment is free. Come and get treated.
Now, the deadliest Ebola outbreak was seen in West Africa. While the epidemic was first reported in Guinea in December 2013, it soon spread to countries like Liberia, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. By the time the epidemic was declared over in June 2016, more than 11,000 deaths had been recorded. The current outbreak is potentially more challenging to contain because the currently licensed vaccines protect people from infection with Ebola Zaire only. And at present, 2 vaccines to combat the Sudan strain are undergoing clinical trials. Supportive care measures for Ebola disease include rehydration and blood transfusions. Already, the WHO has rushed a team of 35 experts and 7 tons of emergency medical supplies to the impacted areas. While it has advised both affected nations to undertake several measures such as cross-border screening, travel restrictions for patients and their contacts, it is yet to designate this outbreak as a pandemic. No other country has been advised to close its borders yet or place restrictions on trade and travel as of now. For years, measles was considered a disease that the world had learned to control. A simple 2-dose vaccine had turned what was once a deadly childhood threat into a preventable illness. Many countries even declared the virus as eliminated, marking one of modern public health's greatest achievements. But in 2026, that sense of safety is now beginning to collapse. From the United States to Mexico and now across South Asia, measles is making a deadly comeback. It is exposing the cost of falling vaccination rates, overburdened health systems, and growing gaps in public health coverage. It began quietly in Mexico. A 9-year-old boy visited relatives in Seminole, Texas. When the child returned home to Mexico, he developed a red rash, and within weeks, classmates started falling sick, schools were shut down, and the virus had already crossed borders. The small town in America soon became the epicenter of the largest measles outbreak in the United States in more than 3 decades. Mexico has now recorded more than 17,000 confirmed measles cases since the start of 2025, with at least 40 deaths linked to complications. These deaths include babies and farm workers. And most of the people who have been infected were unvaccinated. Health authorities say that the outbreak first spread through a remote Mennonite community in Chihuahua State before moving into agricultural labor networks and indigenous communities. By the end of 2025, the Chihuahua alone reported more measles cases than the entire United States. Experts warn this is what happens when immunization coverage begins to slip. Remember, measles is one of the most contagious viruses known to science. It essentially spreads through coughing, sneezing, or even talking, and the virus can remain in the air for up to 2 hours. One infected person can potentially spread it to 18 others. In young children, the consequences can be devastating, and they may vary from pneumonia to brain swelling. The crisis is now expanding far beyond North America. Bangladesh is currently facing its deadliest measles outbreak in decades. Authorities have reported 459 child deaths since mid-March of 2026, along with thousands of confirmed cases and tens of thousands of suspected infections. Globally, 82 countries have achieved or maintained official measles elimination status. But health experts say that the status remains fragile. Recently, the virus has been making inroads in the Americas, with the US and Canada losing its measles-free status following prolonged outbreaks. Even as US President Donald Trump is unable to wriggle out of the Iran war, is America creating a pretext for military intervention in Cuba next? Amid Trump's repeated threats of bringing about a regime change, Cuba has now leveled this allegation at United States over a latest report. It all started with a report that was published by Axios, referring to alleged classified US intelligence. It claimed that Cuba has acquired over 300 military drones and has begun discussing plans to use them to attack the US base at Guantanamo Bay, other installations, as well as military vessels. Now, this report quoted American officials as saying that this island nation had been acquiring attack drones of varying capabilities from Russia and Iran since 2023. They cited intel intercepts to indicate that Cuban officials are trying to learn how Iran resisted the United States during the recent 40-day war. However, Cuba has rubbished this claim, maintaining that it doesn't desire war. Instead, it has accused the United States of creating a pretext for a potential war. Its foreign minister, Bruno Rodriguez, said, and I'm quoting him here, "The US government builds day after day a fraudulent case to justify the ruthless economic war against the Cuban people and the eventual military aggression," unquote. Remember, this comes at a time when tensions between the US and Cuba have been soaring. Since Donald Trump threatened tariffs on any country supplying the island nation with fuel in January, allies like Mexico and Venezuela have cut off oil shipments to Cuba, leading to an acute energy crisis. It received its last oil shipment in late March, when Russia delivered approximately 700,000 barrels. On 14th of May, the island nation announced that it has run out of diesel and fuel oil. And since then, the crisis has deepened. Multiple businesses have shut down across Havana. Public transport has nearly disappeared. Multiple parts of the country are now enduring power cuts lasting up to 22 hours a day. This has sparked off protests on the streets. And amid all of this, America has offered support for free and fast satellite internet and $100 million in humanitarian assistance to Cuba. In fact, they've even claimed that the communist government is refusing it. On its part, though, Cuba said that it was willing to consider this offer, but stressed that no strings should be attached with it. On the other hand, CIA Director John Ratcliffe made a rare trip to Cuba last week, where he held high-level talks with senior Cuban officials. Now, as per reports, he warned Havana against engaging in hostilities and made it clear that the U.S. would seriously engage with the island's government on economic and security issues, but only if it makes fundamental changes. In a potential new confrontation between the two countries, reports suggest that U.S. is planning to indict Cuba's former leader, Raul Castro, on charges related to the 1996 shooting down of two planes operated by humanitarian group Brothers to the Rescue. Now, while Trump refused to explicitly comment on this case, he's once again dubbed Cuba as a country in decline.
I don't want to comment on that. I'll let DOJ comment on it. But they need help, as you know. And you talk about a declining country. They are really a nation or a country in decline. So we're going to see. We have a lot to talk about on Cuba, but not maybe for today.
Now, with Cuba's energy crisis seeing no signs of abating, it remains to be seen whether Havana strikes a deal with the US, which is threatening to open a new war front. Moving on, bees may be carrying a secret superpower hidden inside their tiny bodies. Scientists now say nearly 90% of bee species can sense Earth's magnetic field, giving them a natural internal compass. The discovery is opening up a fascinating new window into how some of nature's smallest workers navigate the planet with astonishing precision. Take a look.
For years, scientists wondered how bees always seemed to know where to go, how they could fly long distances, zigzag through forests, find flowers, and still return home with near-perfect accuracy. Now, researchers believe they have found one of the answers: magnets inside bees. A major new study has revealed that nearly 90% of bee species may possess magnetoreception. In simple language, that means they can detect Earth's magnetic field, almost like having a built-in GPS system. Scientists analyzed hundreds of bee species and found many carry tiny magnetic particles inside their bodies. These particles may help bees sense direction, altitude, and movement while flying. The ability is already known in animals like sea turtles, pigeons, and sharks. But discovering it in so many bee species has stunned researchers, and the timing matters. Bees are among the world's most important pollinators. Around 1/3 of global food production depends on pollination, from apples to almonds and coffee to cucumbers. Bees quietly help keep farms and ecosystems alive. Now, researchers have found that bees actually sense the magnetic field of the Earth to map out their flight paths. It is a biological GPS system hidden in plain sight. They use this superpower to track down blossoms, pollinate crops, and return home safely. This discovery proves that bees do not just fly. They read the invisible forces of the planet to keep humanity alive. Bureau Report, WION World is One.